Hi folks, today we're doing something a little different than what I usually do. I am going to be going on a backpacking trip here in the great state of Washington and preparing a little trail food for that time. So what I'm doing here is I'm making some salmon jerky. I lived in Alaska for quite a while when I was younger, and I worked in the fish industry up there, and I worked with a lot of the Alaska Native people up there, and salmon jerky was very big with that culture, and I learned how to make it. And so I'm going to show you just my basic recipe for it. It's a really good, healthy, just fantastic thing, because I really don't like fish, but I do like this. And so what I got here is I got one fillet of red salmon, or also known as sockeye salmon. I got it at Costco. It's this really nice fillet, probably about a 3-pound fillet. And so with the fish in the market, when you go buy your fish, you want to test it to make sure that you're getting as fresh as possible. And so the best way of doing that, to make sure it wasn't, set out on the dock when the fishing boat came in too long in the sun, is you take just your finger and you poke on the fish, and you just poke around the fillet of the meat. And if your finger makes an indent in the meat and it stays there, you do not want that fillet of fish. It's being out there too long, it's being warmed up, and it's just not good to eat. What you want is when you touch the fish, it might bend and be flexible, but you don't leave any kind of indent into the meat. It pops back up, it's nice and springy. If it's a really fishy smell, that means it's being left in the heat too long. And so if you do eat it, you want to make sure that it's very well done. That way you're avoiding any of the little nasties that come with it. And so yeah, this is a really good fillet. It's a nice bright red. This is a red, they also call them red salmon sockeye. So if the meat itself is not a really good red color, the older it is, the longer it sets out, the more pale it's going to be. So you want a nice bright fillet. King is a little bit different, but this is red. And so what I got here, over here in the bowl, is I just got a gallon right there, just a gallon Ziploc bag in a bowl. And I'm going to put my marinade in there, because I'm going to slice this in strips, and then I'm going to be setting it in the fridge overnight. And then tomorrow I will put it on a smoker, and I'll make jerky out of it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to first cut this up right here on the top. You'll see there's just a little place where they left some bones from the dorsal fin. I'm just going to go ahead and get that off of there, because that's the last thing you want to bite into. Just the little bones. You just cut that off of there. And we're going to leave the skin on this fillet, because when you're jerking it and smoking it, it helps hold the meat together and don't fall all apart. And some folks, they'll cut it down lengthways and make these really long strips, but taking and backpacking and hiking is in a Ziploc bag, so I like a more shorter strip. It's more friendly to eat on the trail. So what I do is I start cutting this at an angle, at about a 45-degree angle, going up the fillet in about a 1/2 inch wide strips, because as it jerks and it dries out, the meat dries out, it's going to shrink and get smaller. So you want to make sure that your knife is very sharp, because the skin on the salmon is thick and it's kind of hard to cut. So let's go ahead and get this all cut up here. Yeah, just in 1/2 inch strips, just cut all the way through the skin. That's the first cut, so it's going to be a little off. But after that, they should all be nice little even 1/2 inch strips. So there's one. Let me put an edge on that. Like I said, you want to make sure the knife is sharp, because it will not go through that thick salmon skin if it's not. Okay. Cut that down, that's better. And just continue to cut them strips. You don't need to speed, take your time. And there is no sugar in this recipe. A lot of people put sugar in a marinade. I don't do sugar, so if I want sweet, I'll eat candy. So just continue cutting your little strips here. Skin on. And you can also, if you didn't got a smoker, you can do this in the oven. Just make your oven the lowest heat possible, and then put it on a rack in a pan and stick it in your oven. And just cook it It depends on your oven and how thick your fish is and the moistness. But just cook it until it's nice and dry. It will come out. I'm guessing on your oven you set the lowest temperature. It's going to be 3 to 4 hours minimum to get it dry enough. That way it's not having bacteria. But yeah, I used to work in the Alaska fishing industry, and on the peak season, on the dock I worked at, we would process and go through probably anywhere from 100 to 150,000 pounds of salmon. So you get to know your salmon pretty good. We're almost through here. And once this is done and jerked up, I mean, it's best to keep it in the refrigerator, but when you're going hiking or camping or something, it's pretty shelf stable because it is jerky, it's dry, so it's good for a couple of days. Of course, when you're out in the woods, you don't want to keep it around too much, you know, because the smell of fish, bears, not a good combination. Okay, I got that all sliced up there, as you can see, in these little strips like that with the skin on, nice bright skin. I'm going to throw that in my bag here. Just put them all in the Ziploc bag. Shake it down. So what I'm going to add there is I got 2 cloves of garlic right here and a piece of ginger. I just chopped them and diced them up. I'm going to throw that in the bag with it. I got soy sauce. I'm going to probably put about a 1/4 cup of soy sauce in there. That's good on that. Some black pepper, a tablespoon of that in there. And this here is what I put in it. It's Worcester sauce, steak sauce, about a tablespoon of there. And for a little spice, I got some cayenne powder. Just put a, I don't know, dash or 2 in there, just however much you like, if you like the spice. And the last thing I'm going to put in there, we ain't putting salt because the soy sauce is salty. The Worcester is salty, so there's plenty of salt in there. Is I put a little sweetener. This is monk fruit sweetener. Most of the times you'll see people just load it with brown sugar to make it all sticky and sweet, but I don't like that. But there's monk fruit sweetener, just a couple of tablespoons, just for a hint of sweetness in there. And that should do it. So just shake her on in there. So with the garlic and the ginger, you're gonna get that fantastic flavor. The black pepper, little spice, the Worcester soy sauce, and the cayenne, little sweetener. So after you got that all in your bag, you take it out. And you'll wanna make sure that when you're zipping it up there and folding over, you get as much air out of there as possible. That way the marinade is sitting there nice and good. Take that air out of there, zip it up, and then just gently move it around the bag to mix everything together. You don't want to get in there and massage it, which is too rough with your hands because it will mess up the meat. So you want to keep all that together. As you can see, it's mixing up in there. And you can probably do this in a bowl too with your hands and just mix it up and then put it in the bag, but I just prefer to do it in the bag. Don't have to wash it all. So we got, ooh, helicopter. Sheriff out patrolling. So we got that all mixed up now. It's all in there. Pretty marinade. So I'm going to fold that bag over, unzip it just a little bit, and then press the rest of the air out of there. You want to keep that tight as possible, and then zip her back up. Now what I'm going to do with that, as you can see, it's all mixed in with the meat. It's salmon in there. I'm going to put that back in this bowl. I'm going to set it in the fridge overnight, and tomorrow I'll take it out and make jerky out of it. And so I will see you in a couple of seconds. Okay everyone, so these little pieces of salmon, my little salmon strips for my jerky, have been sitting in the brine overnight. It's about 12 hours. It's been sitting 12 hours. And so what I did is I took them out of the brine, and each one I tucked paper towels, and then I just tucked each little strip here. As you can see, you know, you got all the spices and everything hanging to them, the garlic. I took and put on paper towel and just folded it over and just lightly patted it to get most of the excess off. And then I laid them on this rack. It's a cooling rack, but since it's not gonna be hot temperatures, a cooling rack is fine to do this on. And so I put a piece of tin foil or aluminum foil in a baking sheet, put the rack on it, and then I took a paper towel with oil on there, and I oiled up the rack, because if you don't do that, you put the salmon on there, all the heat smoke is going to stick to the rack, and so it's gonna be hard to get off. So always make sure you oil your rack, that way you don't get that sticking problem. And then I just lay the strips on the rack, as you can see here, and you don't want them touching each other, because if they touch each other, wherever they're touching, it's not gonna be too good, so you wanna make sure you've got plenty of air through there. And this is one of them things where if you do have a convection oven feature on your oven, you can use it, because that will help keep the air circulating, so it's going to get it even dry out, because that's what we're doing with the jerky, is we're drying it, we're really not cooking it. I was going to do this in my smoker, but I decided for the jerky I don't want the smoke flavor, so I'm just going to do it in my oven. And so I've got my oven heated up to the lowest temperature, which is 170 degrees for my oven. Yours might be lower. I prefer about 150, and it takes longer, but it just dries better. But since my oven don't go that low, it's at 170. I am going to use the convection part of the oven, but if you don't have that, it's perfectly fine. It will just take a little bit longer to do. So with the convection oven, I'm guessing it's going to take me about, for these strips, about 3 hours, 3.5 hours. And without a convection feature, it's probably going to about another hour's worth of time. You just got to keep track of your fish and watch it. You know, after 3 hours, after actually about 2 hours, check it out, touch it, see how it's doing, to, you know, get as dry as you like it. I like my salmon jerky just not completely dry like beef jerky, but just a little bit moist, with a little bit of chew left to it, a softer chew. So yeah, I got this, and after I patted off with a paper towel, I left it on the rack for about half an hour just to get a little glaze going on top of it and let it air dry to dry the rest of the moisture off of it. And so now they got a little stickiness to them, which is good. It's not sweetener, because although I did put monk fruit in there, sweetener, it's not like, you know, sugar with all the stickiness to it. It does not do that. It just gives a little sweet flavor. But anyway, yeah, these are ready to go into the oven to start the jerking process. Again, just pat them dry once you take them out of your brine. Oil your rack you're putting them on. Then place them on there where they're not touching. It don't make no difference, I know. So for the folks with OCD, that might be a little bit infuriating, because they're not in order or they're facing the same direction. But anyway, they are on there. I'm gonna put them in the oven, and when they are done and ready to go, I will come back and show you what they look like. Okay, folks, here it is, overnight in the fridge, about 5 hours in the oven, and we have nice, beautiful red salmon or sockeye salmon jerky. There's really good fat in there. It came out perfect. It's not too dry, it's not too moist, it's just perfectly spiced. So yeah, folks, hopefully you try it and you like it and you subscribe to it and you share it and all that good stuff. Next time, who knows? We'll see what we do. But as you can see, that's just beautiful salmon jerky. Healthy, no sugar, satisfying. Eat it and love it. Till next time, folks, God bless and good eats.